We're joined right now by Alex Myers from Golf Digest. So, Alex, you were at the Tour Championship at East Lake last week. How'd you enjoy the weekend? And did you uncover any kind of scoops while you were there?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I'm kind of like embarrassed to say this. It's the first tour championship I'd ever been to. So when I got there, I was like, wow, this course looks great. On TV, it never looks that great. It looks a little boring. And then, of course, I realized, well, the whole thing was torn up. And then I start hearing the players complaining, not complaining, but kind of they were shocked about how different it looked. So to me, it looked great, but I had nothing to compare it to. And it was just amazing that everybody, the general sense was that it was going to play extremely difficult, especially because of the new grass and how firm the greens were. And, they had to change the tee on 15 to par three. They couldn't use that back tee. They're like, nobody could hit that green. And then these guys are shooting 20 under par. So it surprised me by the scores. It's almost like they complained enough that the tour then kind of set it up a little easier. But no, the one thing that I uncovered that I'm kind of taking credit for this is I noticed on Tuesday, both Xander and Scotty Scheffler in separate groups. And Scotty Scheffler was playing with Sam Burns, hit tee balls down the 10th hole instead of down the 18th hole. And Xander in the 18th fairway spent a ton of time. He was trying to figure out, and I was like, what is going on here? And why are they hitting down 10? And I saw Scheffler play a layup up 10 and then hit it over the trees onto the green. I was like, what is going on? So I asked them both about it. And they said, yeah, we're thinking about going down 10 instead of 18. And I'm thinking, wow, they just did this huge restoration that they're building up. And the guys aren't even going to play the 18th hole as designed. That is a bad look for the course, for the tournament, for the FedEx Cup, for the 25 million on the line. And then lo and behold, 12 hours later, the tour declares it internal out of bounds. So I'm taking credit for that, Chris. I kind of got the ball rolling on that, I think. And I think they made the right choice because I think it would have looked really weird to have all that money on the line and guys playing down the wrong hole.
Yeah, right. You wrote that on Golf Digest. There's an article on that you've put up, right? I saw that last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, much has been made about, the staggered scoring system at the Tour
Yeah.
Championship with, Scotty starting 10 strokes ahead of some guys and, a couple ahead. Is this the best way to end the season, or do you have some magic potion yourself or idea of a better format of how to finish the PGA Tour season?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think it all comes down to what you want the FedEx Cup to accomplish. If it truly is a season long battle and you want the person who wins it to be the best player for the season, then I think there should be a staggered start. And I would actually almost lean into it more. I wouldn't have it where it's 10 under, 8 under, all the way down. I would say based on your points throughout the year, you get a certain number of strokes. So now this year, with Scotty having a historic year, he might have had an even bigger lead than that. Which again, some people would say, well, that makes it so boring. Well, okay, fine. But if it's a season-long thing, he deserves to be rewarded. Maybe it would have been Scotty ahead by 4 over Xander, and then Xander 6 ahead of the next guy. I don't know, because those two guys kind of, separated themselves, right? But so to me, if you're going to make it a season-long thing, I would have it where if someone does have a historic season like Scotty did, then he really does get rewarded on the back end there. And maybe you start that staggered start at the beginning of the playoffs, and then you give guys 3 events to catch them. And, you make sure they got to close the deal a little, not just one event. So I would actually lean into it more if you wanted to make it, truly a season long event.
Yeah, I like that idea of the every event, like starting it at the first one, and then the BMW, and they
Well,
go, and it's like, yeah, so that kind of makes a bit more sense to me. And so,
actually, I'm thinking of you more. You could do it where you start, and so instead of having these guys get into the top 50 or whatever to advance, you actually have a cut line, right? But if you're starting outside the cut line, you have to play better to remain in the cut line, and then you go from there. See, there we go. That's better.
let's get Jay on the phone right now. Let's go. Yeah.
I gotta be honest. I do not. Everybody who says cut it down to a match play, to me, that's like I don't want to say dumbest thing ever, but you have a whole season long of 72 hole stroke play, and then for the 25 million, you change the format. To me, that's like the whole, when we make fun of soccer for going to a penalty shootout. It's like, oh, you have a home run derby to settle a baseball game, or you have, like, to me, that's just not what they do all year. So I don't know why you would do that. And in that case, you could have, it's just as likely you have a snoozer on the final day, a bad matchup or a bad match. Someone wins 6-5. So, if someone has a historic season and they kind of romp to the title, I don't know, that's just how it works out if you want a reward for the whole year. But anyway, I don't like the match play aspect of it. I think that allows for a flukier winner and just as much of a potential for no drama at the end.
Well, we're joined by Alex Myers from Golf Digest. You can find him on X or Twitter at Alex Myers and the number 3. So you just mentioned Scotty's incredible season. Is his success good for the PGA Tour long term, or would a more balanced field, because Scotty's just showing up every week and he's the guy? Do you think long term that's good for the PGA Tour? Would you like to see more, like the NFL is, where there's just a little bit more parity?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously for such a long time, Tiger dominated, and that was great for the sport. But Tiger was Tiger. For whatever reason, Scotty doesn't quite bring the same juice, if we're going to be honest. Whether it's the ratings or the buzz leading in, people aren't so. I think, to answer your question, one dominant player can be great for the sport, but it has to be a certain person. And for whatever reason, Scotty isn't the guy. I think he's really funny. I think he's smart. I think he's a great guy. But yeah, he just doesn't command the juice. So because of that, and because this is now year 3 of him kind of dominating, I would like to see someone else kind of step in there and challenge him. Now, obviously, Xander did do that this year. He won 2 of the 4 majors. So, he really established himself as the number 2. And then you always have Rory. After he won it at Wells Fargo, it kind of looked like he might take off, but he just didn't really do anything the rest of the way. You have the, younger guys, Ludwig coming up. You have Victor Hovland had an off year, but I think at the end he showed signs of getting back to that. I mean, a year ago we were saying he was the best player in the world. So, there is potential for, I would say it'd be great if those 5 guys were in the mix. And then, certainly, obviously, we're missing a couple guys on LIV, whether it's Rahm and Bryson. I would say right now are clearly the 2 guys who are not only top 5 players probably, but also top 5 draws in the sport. So, to answer your question, long way of saying it, I think another year or so of Scotty dominating like this probably wouldn't be good for the tour.
You kind of stole my thunder with the next question too, because I was going to ask, I mean, Scotty's year, what he just did is on par with anything Tiger did at his peak. He's just as good pretty much, but he still doesn't have that same star power. Is that one, Scotty being reluctant and not wanting the spotlight? Or do you think the PGA Tour is failing him and not marketing him enough to propel him the way Tiger was?
Yeah. I think with Tiger though, well, I mean, obviously Nike did most of that marketing, I would say, but Tiger was just Tiger. It's like it's a singular thing. It's like Caitlin Clark now, right? It's like Jordan back in the day. I mean, whatever it was, it's the right time. It's the right person. It's, the right background in Tiger's case. It just, the showmanship on the course. It's just, I don't know if that could happen again. It was kind of lightning in a bottle. So, no, I mean, yeah, I could the tour do more? Yeah, I guess they could. Could Scotty do more? Yeah, I guess he could. But that also has to do with his sponsors wanting to get him out there too. And, he hasn't taken off. I mean, I would still say, like, Rory McIlroy clearly has a lot more visibility than Scotty Scheffler. Even a Jordan Spieth, if Jordan Spieth ever got his game back, he would vault Scheffler in terms of stardom. For whatever reason, he's another Texan too. Like, you would think it would be, I don't know what the difference is there, but for whatever reason, he just commands the attention a little more. You mentioned something, Scotty's year. I do want to say, because I gotta be fair here. It's almost as good as anything we've seen from Tiger. That is true. And statistically, that is true. But I do think a lot of people overlook the fact Rahm isn't there. Cam Smith isn't there. Bryson isn't there. Like, I just think you gotta be fair and say there's a very good chance that Scotty doesn't win 7 times if those guys are all there. And I just feel like no one wants to recognize that. And I don't want to take anything away from Scotty, but look at last year. Rahm won 4 events, before the or by the Masters, right? And you had Cam Smith shooting 35 under par in Hawaii, and which is another event that Scotty won this year. And I didn't even mention Brooks Koepka, obviously. And so, that's where like it's amazing what we saw from him, and he dominated who he played against. But if we're being honest, he did not play against everybody. I just want to make that clear. And so Tiger's my guy, and I just want to, put that on the record.
Well, I'm Team Live, and so
Of
you're
course,
preaching
no,
to the
and
choir
of
here,
course, I know,
So
yeah.
So, well, speaking of Tiger, and so for those who can't see, Alex has in the background, he's got the Tigers 2019 infamous Masters win there. So I have a good idea where you're going to answer this. Which team are you on? Are you on Team Tiger, it's time to shut it down, or are you on Team I'm just happy to see him tee it up anytime?
Man, I've always been. I'm just happy to see him tee it up anytime. But this year, I finally kind of crossed over, and it just got to the point where it got a little depressing. So I don't want him to give up, and I know he's not going to give up. And obviously, he doesn't care what anybody thinks. But um, I would like to see him give it maybe one more year. But it's getting tougher for me to watch. Like I like now come into it where I'm not even really excited. I'm more dreading watching it because you just kind of know what's going to happen. And what's crazy, Chris, is like these last couple of years, he's actually played, okay the first couple of days, made the cut at a few of these majors, and then he literally can't even finish the event. So I even know, okay, first day he might do okay, second day, it's just sad, like watching him be hobbled like this. So I don't know if I would ever say I don't even want him to show up, but I'm definitely leaning more towards that. Wow, this is just getting kind of tough to watch. But I will say one of the coolest moments this year for me was seeing him finish his second round at Augusta. He almost chipped in on 18. The crowd went nuts. He cleaned it up for par, tipped the cap. You got chills watching it. And you just never know if it's the last time. You really never know. I don't think it will be, but he still gives you those chills that the other players don't. So that was a pretty special moment to see that.
Yeah, I'm of the thought, we've reached that almost the way Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses shows up. Look, it's still Guns N' Roses, but it's not Axl Rose in 1991 and his white jeans, and he's a little heavier, and
Right.
and so it's not as there's a little uncomfortable watching it. You know what I mean?
That's funny you say that. I saw Stone Temple Pilots, one of my favorite bands ever. I saw, unfortunately, the late great Scott Weiland. I saw him perform, and it was him without the rest of the band, but he had a different band, and it was in one of his last days, and he was just, slurring the words, couldn't say anything, screaming at people in the crowd, like he was almost getting into fights with people in the crowd. I was like, this is just bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. You don't want it to get to that point.
And it's creeping towards there, and so that's the problem. So, well, we're joined by Alex Myers in Golf Digest. You can find him on X or Twitter at Alex Myers and the number 3. So, the PGA Tour, the 2023-24 season just wrapped up. I want to go through a couple quick little things. So, most surprising player of 2024.
Can I say in a bad way?
Yeah, either or. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you got to start with Jordan Spieth. I mean, the fact that and I know he has this injury and he just had the wrist surgery. And so, maybe that explains how he's won twice in 7 years. But I think people thought he'd kind of turned a corner last year, and he was awful this year. I mean, for his standards, I mean, he's just not even like a top 50 player anymore, not even a relevant player. So that was kind of crazy. Also, Max Homa really fell off after the beginning of the year. So those would be two guys that stood out. Of course, Xander Schauffele, I don't think it's much of a surprise, but like the fact that he made such a leap to then picking off majors, every other month, it seems. That was pretty awesome to see on the other hand. So those would be the three names, I guess, that come to mind. And again, Spieth, we'll see with the injury, with the wrist, if he said something about his wrist popping out of the joint 20 times this year. I mean, to me, that seems kind of crazy to be playing with that. So maybe this will really, really fix him, because he's obviously an exciting player to watch, especially when he's going well.
Yeah, Jordan's one of my favorite. I went down to the Memorial, just north of Columbus back in was it June, and after the first round, I sat and watched him on the practice driving range, and I've never seen a golfer look more miserable. There was just no joy in anything he was doing. You could see there were some physical issues. Mentally, he was just like, "Oh, I don't want to be it." And you see that with a truck driver and a construct. There's certain guys on the job like they don't want to be here, and he had that look. And so, yeah, it's kind of frustrating to see a guy that I love kind of going through this. Just your thoughts on seeing that,
Yeah, yeah. On the flip side, that reminds me, shout out to Billy Horschel, because Billy Horschel last year was literally in tears at the Memorial.
Yeah.
And, couldn't break 80 as the defending champ. Who knows? It looked like his career could be finished. I mean, look at like a Kevin Kisner. His career looks like it's kind of finished now. He's in the booth. He's doing it. Billy Horschel seemed like he was kind of going down that way. And now all of a sudden, a year later, he nearly wins his first major. He makes it deep into the FedEx Cup, obviously. I'm kind of surprised he didn't get a President's Cup nod. He's playing great. He's a fiery guy. I think you would want him on the team. Personally, I would have put him on the team if I was Captain Furyk. But Horschel to get back into the winner's circle, that's an amazing turnaround. But to your point, you can see these guys go through it, and it's brutal. And you realize, man, it's not like, when things are going well, it's a dreamy life for sure. But when they're not going well and you're just missing cuts and you're on the road and you're away from your family and, you don't know what the future holds, that's tough. So kudos to him for making such an amazing turnaround.
Yeah. So most annoying storyline of 2024.
Ooh, question. Most annoying storyline. I guess I would say the Scotty arrest, I guess, just because it got to be so much. I mean, I get it. The day it happened, I was like screaming to my wife. I was like, you got to see this. This is unbelievable. Like, this is the number one player in the world is arrested. But then it just God, it was like every single detail and kind of like he said back and forth and all that. And, the jokes kind of got a little tired and everything else. And hand up, I was involved in that as well. I mean, we all did it, but I guess that would be the one thing. It was like, it was, but again, it was something maybe we'll never see again, but I think it got more than its fair share of coverage.
See, before I worked in media, I was a music agent for 20 years. I represented Grammy-winning bands. And so the arrest to me is like, any press is good press. To me, I was like, this is great. If I was his agent, I'd be like, sweet. You know what I mean? It's like,
I know.
Yeah.
Again, we talk about why doesn't he draw? Like, you would think that would give him some street cred and get him some more juice. But even that, it's like people after that day, they kind of moved on. I guess if he had gone on to win, that would have really done it. But since he kind of fell back on the weekend, we kind of forgot about it. But that's funny. Yeah, no, it ended up being good press for him, to be honest.
So I was the Wu-Tang Clan's agent for 12 years.
Get out of here.
Yeah, swear to God. I wrote a book about it called Life on the Road with the Wu-Tang Clan. You can go, it's about my 12 years on the road with them. And
I'd have to check
a bunch of others. I mean, that's a bunch of big rappers. So trust me, I know about guys getting arrested and being good press. So that's that. So
I'm embarrassed I didn't know that, Chris.
Yeah. Well, I don't bring it up too much in golf because most people are like, they don't even know who the Wu-Tang Clan is in golf. But yeah, that's that. So, awesome. Well, we heard from Jay Monahan this past week at the Tour Championship, and I'm assuming you've had some sort of interactions with Jay over the years. Just what do you make of him as a person, kind of out of the spotlight?
Well, yeah, out of the spotlight, I really haven't dealt much with him. I was at that press conference the other day and I walked away and someone said, "What'd you think?" And I said, that was a masterclass in giving 2-minute answers where he didn't answer a question. I mean, it was unbelievable. So I kind of came away from that disappointed in the lack of information that we all gathered, but also impressed because I was like, man, this guy, he doesn't just say no comment. He gives you what you think is an answer, and then you realize it and you read it again. You're like, he didn't answer anything. So, whether it was, he brought up some potential TV stuff, which sounds exciting, different, innovations. And then it was like, well, can you give us one example? And didn't really do it. And then, how are the negotiations going? Yeah, they're going on, but I can't really talk about it, blah, blah, blah. What are you going to do about the rollback? We're looking into the data, that kind of, there were so many juicy topics and he just did not divulge anything. So on one hand, I guess like he did his job, like to protect whatever secrets they're guarding. But on the other hand, yeah, it would have been nice to get a little more transparency.
Yeah, I think Kamala Harris needs to hire Jay to be like, hey, this is how you do it there. You know what I mean? Get out there, say nothing, and everyone will be impressed. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, he sounds good. He
Yeah.
sounds really good talking. I mean, yeah, he's a smooth operator.
So we're joined by Alex Myers from Golf Digest, and I don't want to keep you too long here, even though I got a whole bunch of other topics, so I'll try to jump ahead to a couple. I mean, we already talked President's Cup. I'm here in Canada. It's happening on Canadian soil up in Montreal in a couple of weeks. Just your thoughts on some of the American team's picks. We'll start with just some of the captain's picks. I mean, you mentioned Horschel missing out. Anyone else you think egregious?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to kind of contradict myself here because last year I did not think Justin Thomas should make the team, but I actually do think he should have made it this year. And I do think Billy Horschel should have made it. And I think Akshay Bhatia should have made it because I think you should always be a little more forward thinking in getting guys reps for, let's be honest, the Ryder Cup, which is treated as a bigger deal. And so you want to get guys some experience. So, Akshay Bhatia had a great year. He's a young stud. I have no doubt he'll be a top 10 player at some point, at least. And I would have liked to see him get a chance. I would like to see Horschel get a chance again because he did so well last time, and he's such a fiery part, and he's a good match play guy. And then JT, just his record alone, you have so many guys who are, don't have a lot of experience. I'm not a big, like, you need some experience guys, but like he has not only experience, but he actually does have a great record, especially in that event. So that's where I would have gone there. For the internationals, Chris, I honestly, Dave Shedlowski, who I work with, he said he had gotten in Mike Weir's ear a few weeks ago and said, you should pick all Canadians. And I was like, what? And then I looked at it. I was like, you're right. He should have. This event needs juice. It's in Canada. Like you mentioned, the other time it was played there, everybody remembers Mike Weir taking down Tiger on Sunday and how electric that atmosphere was. So we know what the crowd can do there. And if you look at the last two road matches for the US's perspective, they've been really close. In South Korea, it came down to my Wake Forest classmate, Billy Haas, came up clutch and won. And in Australia, the US was trailing going into that final day, and they came back and won. So, this is not a gimme when you go on the road. And then if you just infuse, I know we picked 3 Canadians, but to leave off Nick Taylor, to leave off Adam Hadwin, he could have easily picked 5. I don't know who the 6th would have been. We were racking our brains. We were like, obviously, there's no more Mo Norman. We got the Graham Gillette. His time is coming on. But I would have gone for at least 5 Canadians and really juiced up the crowd.
Well, hey, you're preaching to the choir here.
I'm
Canada,
sure.
it's like, of course, I was thinking the same thing. He was going to do it the whole time. And I was even thinking, well, maybe he shouldn't. And then I think he somewhere along the way, it looked like he was aiming. He was going to do that. I think somewhere last minute, someone pulled the rug from under him. I think.
Look, I get it. He doesn't want to look like he's doing that and playing favorites. And then if they happen to play bad, it's like the biggest blow up in his face ever. But to me, it's like you almost have nothing to lose because, again, even though the internationals have almost won the last 2 home matches, nobody gives them a chance. And so you almost have nothing to lose. You may as well like kind of go for it. And that would be such a cool storyline. And again, just give the crowds would just be, I mean, they're going to be great. The crowds are going to be great. I know they will, but it would have been even more electric with all of those Canadians playing.
No doubt. So we're joined by Alex Myers, Golf Digest. 2 quick questions here as we're running against time here. And so, recent history has told us that at the end of the year, someone big, someone of significance is going to make the jump to live. Can you throw a few names out there that wouldn't surprise you? That, hey, look, it's happen, it's going to happen, right? It's just a matter of who. So can you throw a few names of like, it wouldn't surprise me if this guy went?
Yeah, I mean, I know that like kind of the white whale all along has been Hideki Matsuyama. The just he people in America do not realize what a global star this guy is. And when he won the Masters, it just, exponentially increased his status around the world. And now, I mean, he's back to being probably one of the top 10 players in the world. So I know he's a guy who Greg Norman has said, we've been targeting him since the beginning. There've been numbers thrown around that are kind of John Rahm-esque numbers for him. And for whatever reason, he hasn't done it. But again, you never know. His back acted up. He had to withdraw from one of the events. You're just an injury away from having a bad year. And to get that security of a big signing bonus or whatever you want to call it, that would probably be the guy. I know some people floated the Rory thing, and I know it does look like he's, he used to be buddy with Jay Monahan, and it doesn't quite seem the same. Like they're as, buddy anymore. And now Rory seems to be the most vocal. He was the most vocal guy standing up for the tour. Now he's the most vocal guy saying, we got to get a deal done. We got to get a deal done. When some other guys are saying, we don't need to get a deal done because they have the SSG and everything else. So I still think that's kind of crazy. I don't think he would quite go there. But like, put it this way, it's a year ago, I would have said 0.0% chance. Now it could happen. I would say like a 1% chance, a 1% chance.
I had a tweet go viral this week as I posted a video from Rory talking about, after a Sunday at East Lake. And he's like, next year I want to get my schedule down to 18 to 20 events. And I tweeted, LIV schedule 14 events plus all 4 majors. Just saying. And of course, everyone's diving in. I knew what I was doing. It's like lighting a firecracker and then backing away. And so, but yeah, it was that was just kind of it. So we're joined by Alex Myers, Golf Digest. Finally, Alex, back in June, you made ESPN Sports Center for making a hole-in-one at Oak Hill. I mean, obviously, that's the site of the 2023 PGA Championship. Walk us through that day. Was there an inkling that something special might happen when you got to the course?
It's so crazy. There really wasn't an inkling. The day before we had played, but gotten called off the course a couple times to thunderstorms. So we only played about 10 holes and we started on the 3rd hole. So like, I'd never been there. And so like, I was all out of whack. We started on the 3rd hole again. I knew we were getting to the last, I thought it was our last par 3, and it's just such a beautiful downhill par 3. And it was really windy and it was a little chilly. And I just said, this is an ace hole. I'm going to video everybody. I just said it. I don't know why. I've said that maybe a couple times in my life, but so I videoed everyone, and 2 guys actually hit great shots, but the wind just killed it and they came up short. And it's so funny. If you see the video, I was in a group with Carlos Boozer of all people. And so I went, and my buddy, Steve Hennessy, who I work with, filmed it. And, I got to give him credit. He not only did we film it and it went in, he kept the camera going and he got everybody's reaction. And it's just amazing. I never thought I'd get one. And the fact that I got one at such a iconic course and on a hole, the Michael Block hole, and that it was filmed and that I could watch it. And then, yeah, like you mentioned, like I'm playing with a guy from ESPN, and it was kind of a slow sports day. There was a Stanley Cup game, final game, but other than that, there was not much going on. And he worked the phones, and he not only got it into, he was like, I'm going to get it on SportsCenter top 10. I'm like, that'd be pretty sick. He got it. I got my own special segment on it. It helped. Michael Block reached out and congratulated me. Honestly, it's crazy. It's been 3 months, but it's still obviously the coolest thing that's ever happened to me on a golf course. So pretty amazing.
I would have quit right there. I'll burn the clubs.
I know.
That's it, man. It's never getting any better than that. Well, Alex, I can't thank you enough for your time. It's always a home run. Anything you want to plug before we let you go?
Nah, I'm good.
Check out
golfdigest.com. Yeah, please. Check us out as always. We'll I know we're getting cooling down a little here with some of the events, but we still have President's Cup, and we'll have a lot of good stuff for that. So check it out.
Awesome. Thanks for your time.
You got it, Chris. Take care.